gold. He's roasted presidents on their faces, mocked billionaires to their billionaire friends, and somehow made Hollywood's most polished stars reveal their most human moments. But on a Thursday night that would become legendary in late-night television, Jimmy Kimmel encountered something that tested even his legendary wit. A prince so determined to settle old scores that he forgot he was facing a man who turns confrontation into content. Prince Harry walked onto that Hollywood stage with a list of grievances and fire in his eyes. He walked off 20 minutes later, verbally dismantled, publicly outmaneuvered, leaving behind an audience that couldn't believe what they'd just witnessed. Before we dive into this explosive confrontation, make sure you hit subscribe and smash that like button. Now, let's get into what really happened on that Hollywood stage. The Jimmy Kimmel Live studio buzzed with its usual late-night energy as the audience settled into their seats. The familiar blue backdrop, the iconic desk, the band warming up. Everything was set for another night of entertainment. Jimmy emerged from backstage to thunderous applause, waving to the crowd with his signature self-deprecating grin. Thank you, thank you. Welcome to the show. We have a very interesting guest tonight. I say interesting because his people called us 3 times to make sure I wouldn't be mean. I promised nothing. Please welcome Prince Harry. The applause was enthusiastic as Harry emerged from backstage, but something in his expression suggested he wasn't here for casual conversation. His smile was tight, his jaw set, his posture carrying the tension of someone who'd come with an agenda. He crossed the stage, offered Jimmy a stiff handshake rather than the usual friendly greeting, and settled into the guest chair with deliberate formality. Harry, thanks for being here. How's it going? It's going, Harry replied flatly. Though I have to say, I almost didn't come tonight. Jimmy's eyebrows rose. Really? Why not? We have great snacks in the green room. Because I've seen some of the things you've said about me on this show, and I wasn't sure I wanted to give you another opportunity to make jokes at my expense. The audience stirred uncomfortably. Jimmy's smile remained, but his eyes sharpened. Well, you're here now. So either you decided to forgive me, or you want to confront me. Which is it? Maybe both. Jimmy nodded slowly. Okay, this is going to be fun. Harry leaned forward, his expression hardening. You called me the world's most expensive house guest when we first moved to California. You said I was collecting grievances like Pokemon cards. You implied I was. Jimmy held up a hand. I remember what I said. I've said a lot of things about a lot of people. It's kind of my job. Your job is to mock people who've been through real trauma. My job is to make observations that are funny. Sometimes those observations are about people who've been through trauma. Sometimes those people are you. The two aren't mutually exclusive. Harry's jaw tightened. It didn't feel like observation. It felt like attack. I understand that. But here's the thing. I make jokes about everyone. Presidents, celebrities, myself. If you want to be exempt from comedy because of your struggles, you're asking for special treatment. And special treatment is kind of what you claim to be against, right? The audience laughed nervously. Harry didn't. There's a difference between comedy and cruelty. There is. And I've never been cruel to you. I've been honest. Sometimes honesty sounds cruel to people who aren't used to hearing it. That's a very convenient excuse for saying whatever you want. It's not an excuse. It's an explanation. You came on the show to confront me about jokes I've made. I'm telling you those jokes were based on observable behavior. If you want to argue the behavior wasn't real, let's do that. But if you just want me to apologize for noticing things, that's not going to happen. Harry shifted tactics, his voice taking on a condescending edge. You know what I've noticed about comedians like you? You mock people from positions of safety. You sit behind your desk, make your jokes, and never face any consequences. Jimmy tilted his head. No consequences? I've been canceled more times than I can count. I've had sponsors pull out, advertisers complain, network executives call me at midnight. Every night I sit behind this desk, I risk my career. That's not safety. That's gambling. It's not the same as what I face. Of course it's not. I'm not comparing our struggles. I'm pointing out that position of safety isn't accurate. Nobody in public life is safe. Not you, not me, not anyone who puts themselves out there. The difference is I don't pretend my struggles are unprecedented. My struggles are unprecedented, are they? Your mother faced worse scrutiny and didn't have the option of moving to California. Your grandmother worked for 70 years under constant public pressure. Your father has been mocked relentlessly for decades. Your struggles are real, Harry, but they're not unprecedented. They're actually quite typical for your family. Harry's face reddened. You have no idea what I've been through. I know what you've told me. Through your book, your documentary, your interviews. You've shared extensively. I've listened. And based on what you've shared, I've made observations. That's how public life works. Jimmy leaned back, his posture relaxed, but his attention focused. Let's change gears. You're in California now, living the dream in Montecito. How's that going? Harry's expression shifted slightly, an attempt at a practiced smile. It's wonderful. I'm thriving. We're building something meaningful. Thriving. That word keeps coming up. You and Megan use it a lot. It's practically your brand at this point. It's not a brand. It's the truth. Okay, but help me understand something. You're thriving. You're happy. You've escaped the oppressive institution. Everything's wonderful. So why do you seem so angry all the time? Harry stiffened. I'm not angry. You came on this show specifically to confront me about jokes I've made. Your first statement was basically, I almost didn't come because you've been mean to me. That's not thriving energy, Harry. That's grudge energy. Having concerns about how I've been portrayed isn't the same as holding grudges, isn't it? Because you've been portrayed many ways by many people. You could have addressed it in any number of forums. Instead, you came here, to my show, to confront me directly. That suggests this is personal. Personal is the opposite of thriving. The audience murmured in agreement. Harry's hands clenched on the armrests. I came here because I believe in direct communication. You came here because you wanted to put me in my place. You wanted to show the audience that Jimmy Kimmel was wrong about you. But so far, you've mostly confirmed everything I've said. You're defensive, you're hostile, you're treating a comedy show like a tribunal. That's not thriving. That's proving my point. Harry stood up slightly, then forced himself to sit back down. You're deliberately provoking me. I'm asking you questions. If basic questions feel like provocation, maybe examine why. Because your questions are loaded. My questions are simple. How's it going? How's California? Why do you seem angry? Those are literally the softest questions I could ask. If they feel loaded, the explosives are coming from somewhere else. You're twisting everything I say. I'm repeating everything you say. There's a difference. Your words are your words. I'm just pointing at them. Harry exhaled sharply. Let's talk about something else. Sure. How's Megan? The shift in Harry's demeanor was immediate and dramatic. Walls going up, expression closing off, entire body becoming defensive. I prefer not to discuss my wife. Jimmy's eyebrows shot up. Really? But she's half of everything you've built. The Netflix deal, the foundation, the public narrative, it's all joint. How can we discuss your life without discussing her? We can focus on my individual work. Which is what exactly? The foundation is joint. The media appearances are joint. The brand is Sussex, not just Harry. What's the individual work? Harry paused, seeming unable to answer. Jimmy continued gently. I'm not trying to trap you. I'm genuinely asking. You've positioned yourself as part of a team. When you remove the team from the conversation, what's left? I have my own identity. I'm sure you do. But you haven't shown it to the public. Everything we know about your post-royal life involves Megan. She's in every documentary, every interview, every project. So when you say you don't want to discuss her, you're essentially saying you don't want to discuss your entire public existence. Harry's voice sharpened. My relationship is private. Jimmy laughed, a genuine, surprised laugh. Private? Harry, you published your relationship in a 6-part Netflix documentary. You discussed intimate details of your marriage on Oprah. Your book includes conversations between you and Megan that most couples would never share publicly. Where exactly is the privacy? I can choose what to share and when. Of course you can, but you can't claim privacy for things you've already made public. That's not how it works. Once you sell your story, you don't get to buy back the parts you don't want discussed. The studio had gone quiet. The audience could feel the tension, could sense something unprecedented unfolding. Harry's composure was cracking visibly now. His face was flushed, his breathing heavier. This is exactly what I expected from American media. The same tactics as the British tabloids, just with a different accent. Jimmy shook his head slowly. I'm not a tabloid. I'm a comedian who asks questions. Those are very different things. Tabloids invent stories. I comment on stories you've told. The source material is entirely your creation. You're still exploiting my life for entertainment. You're still selling your life for profit. We're in the same business, Harry. The difference is I'm honest about it. I'm not in the same business as you. Aren't you? You have a production company. You create content about your life. You monetize your personal experiences. That's exactly what I do, except I use other people's experiences too. You're a one-man show. I'm an ensemble. Same industry. Harry pointed at Jimmy, his hand trembling slightly. I'm trying to help people. I'm trying to share my stories so others know they're not alone. And I'm trying to make people laugh so they forget their problems for an hour. Both are valid. But don't pretend yours is noble while mine is exploitation. We're both entertainers, Harry. The difference is I don't claim to be saving the world. Harry grabbed the armrests of his chair, clearly fighting the urge to stand up and leave. You know what your problem is, Jimmy? You've never faced real adversity. You sit here in your nice studio, with your nice salary, making fun of people who've actually struggled. Jimmy's expression shifted, the humor draining away, replaced by something more serious. You want to talk about adversity? My son was born with a heart defect. He almost died. Multiple times. I've sat in hospital rooms not knowing if my child would survive the night. I've begged doctors for news, prayed for miracles, faced the possibility of losing everything that matters. He paused. That's adversity, Harry. Real adversity. The kind that doesn't come with Netflix money and Montecito mansions. The kind that happens to ordinary people who don't have the resources you have. So please, don't lecture me about struggle. I've earned my perspective. The audience was silent. Harry looked genuinely taken aback. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. Because you didn't ask. Because you came here to confront, not to connect. You've been so focused on your grievances that you forgot I'm a human being too. That's been your problem all along. Harry, you want empathy without offering any. Harry sat frozen, caught between anger and something that might have been shame. I'm sorry about your son. He's fine now. Thank you. But my point stands. You walked in here thinking I was your enemy because I've made jokes about you. You didn't consider that I might have reasons for my perspective. You didn't consider that my observations might be valid. You just wanted to win an argument. I didn't come here to argue. You've done nothing but argue. From the moment you sat down, you've been combative. Every question has been an attack. Every observation has been an insult. That's not conversation. That's combat. And frankly, it's exhausting. Harry stood up abruptly. I think we're done here. Jimmy didn't stand. He just looked up at Harry with an expression of weary resignation. Are we? We're only 15 minutes in. I had so many more questions. I'm not interested in more questions. You're not interested in any questions. That's been clear from the start. You wanted a platform to complain about my jokes. When I didn't apologize, you got angry. Now you're leaving because you can't control the conversation. That's a pattern, Harry. It's not a pattern. It's absolutely a pattern. You leave the royal family when you can't control your role in it. You leave the UK when you can't control the press coverage. You leave interviews when you can't control the questions. Running away is your signature move. Harry's face contorted with barely suppressed rage. I don't run away. You're literally walking toward the exit right now. The observation stopped Harry in his tracks. He stood frozen, caught between his desire to leave and his awareness that leaving would prove Jimmy's point. I'm choosing not to participate in this ambush. What ambush? I asked you how you're doing. I asked about your life in California. I asked about your wife. Those are literally the most basic interview questions. If they feel like an ambush, you've been doing the wrong interviews. Your tone, my tone has been curious, occasionally teasing, largely friendly. The same tone I use with every guest. If it feels hostile to you, that's because you came in expecting hostility. You found exactly what you were looking for because you brought it with you. Harry grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. This was a mistake. Probably. But not for the reasons you think. What's that supposed to mean? You came here to settle a score. To show everyone that Jimmy Kimmel was wrong about you. Instead, you've confirmed everything I've ever said. You're defensive. You're hostile. You can't take a joke. And you run away from anything you can't control. I didn't create that portrait. You painted it yourself, live on my show. Harry's voice rose dangerously. I'm not defensive. You've been defensive since you walked in. Before I asked a single question, you were already confronting me about old jokes. That's the definition of defensive. I was addressing legitimate concerns. You were settling scores. There's a difference. Legitimate concerns get resolved through dialogue. Scores get settled through confrontation. You chose confrontation. Now you're upset that I responded in kind. Harry pointed at Jimmy, his hand shaking. You're going to regret this interview. Jimmy smiled slightly. I've been hearing that for 20 years. From people much more powerful than you. Somehow I'm still here. I mean it, I'm sure you do. But threats don't work on me. Harry, I've been threatened by presidents. You're a prince without a principality. The power imbalance isn't what you think it is. Harry moved toward the exit, then turned back for one final confrontation. You know what I've learned about people like you? You tear down others because you can't build anything yourself. You mock because you can't create. You criticize because you can't contribute. Jimmy nodded thoughtfully. That's a nice speech. Did you rehearse it? I'm speaking from the heart. You're speaking from frustration. Because you came here expecting to win, and instead you lost. Not because I'm smarter or meaner or better prepared, but because you can't engage with anyone who doesn't already agree with you. That's your weakness, Harry. Not the press, not the institution, not the palace. Your inability to handle disagreement. I can handle disagreement. You're literally fleeing from a comedian who asked you basic questions. If you could handle disagreement, you'd sit down, engage, and prove me wrong. Instead, you're running. Again. Harry stared at Jimmy for a long moment. Something flickered behind his eyes. Anger, certainly, but also something that might have been recognition. The uncomfortable awareness that maybe, just maybe, some of what Jimmy was saying had truth in it. But he couldn't admit that. Not here. Not now. Goodbye, Jimmy. Goodbye, Harry. Thanks for confirming everything I've ever said about you. Harry turned and walked off the stage. His footsteps echoed through the silent studio until a door slammed in the distance. Jimmy sat alone for a moment, then turned to face the camera with a bemused expression. Well, that happened. He rubbed his temples. I want to be clear. I didn't intend for that to go the way it went. I thought we'd have some laughs, talk about his California life, maybe get into some lighter topics. Instead, he came in hot and never cooled down. He shook his head. Here's the thing about interviews. They work best when both people are willing to engage in good faith. He wasn't. He came here to confront me about old jokes, and when I didn't apologize, he got angry. That's not my fault. I can't control someone else's expectations. Jimmy looked directly into the camera. What I can say is this. I've made jokes about Prince Harry because his behavior is joke-worthy. Not his trauma, his behavior. The constant media appearances while claiming to want privacy. The grievances about wealth while living in obvious luxury. The complaints about family while publicly attacking family. Those contradictions are funny. And pointing them out isn't hostility, it's observation. He paused. He's welcome back anytime. Seriously, if he wants to have an actual conversation, I'm here. But if he comes back expecting me to apologize for noticing things, he'll be disappointed again. That's not what I do. I notice things, and I comment on them. That's the job. The interview lasted 18 minutes before Harry walked out. Its impact would last considerably longer. For Jimmy Kimmel, it was a demonstration of what he'd always known. That comedy could coexist with confrontation. That asking questions with a smile was still asking questions. And that refusing to apologize for accurate observations wasn't hostility, but integrity. For Prince Harry, it was something else. Another interview that went wrong. Another host who didn't understand. Another retreat to the safety of controlled messaging and friendly media. But the footage remained. The questions remained. And the exit, that dramatic, wounded, entirely predictable exit, remained too. Some battles you choose. Others choose you. And some battles you can't win. Not because your opponent is stronger, but because you've already lost to yourself before the fight begins. Harry had come to settle scores. He left with new ones. And the cameras had captured it all. What do you think? Was Jimmy too harsh, or did Harry deserve every response? Who would you want to see on Jimmy Kimmel Live next? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video to help it reach